everybody. Welcome to OSE Can You See on May 30th, 2018. We are here the first, third, and fifth Wednesday of the month at 7 p.m. live, and we also every Tuesday at 6 o'clock reruns. Tonight we're going to talk about kind of like political apathy. I've been hearing more and more lately about people that they don't want to talk about politics. They don't want to get involved in politics. They said it stresses them out too much. They get overwhelmed by it, so they're just leaving it out of their lives. And they really have no idea that every action they do, even ignoring it, is a political stance. And so I just want to touch on some of these things that if you want to be more involved, but you feel like it stresses you out too much, there's some little small actions that you can do. And of course, there's always huge, big actions that that we see on in the news, on television, on Facebook, and all these things that you're like, oh, I could never do that. But there are smaller things that you can do that make a difference as well, and we're going to talk about those. And so, one of the things that bother me the most is that we seem to be distracted by what's really going on in the world politically. And some of the current American system that we have, the current people in our government are really distracting us by some of the strangest, horriblest actions. And I think they're just trying to divide our country and make people not think that they matter, or even to hate their neighbor, and it just gets really frustrating. So the title of my show is Organized Human Existence. And what I think we need to think about mostly, rather than dividing the country, is what do we have in common? We all want to live. We want our family to live. We want to be healthy, and we want to have shelter and food, and we want to be able to live with our family-wise and with each other. That's all we really want, but we seem to have different reasons why, or different how are we going to get to this situation where how are we all going to get happy and get what we need so that our children are safe and things like this. People have different ideas about that. Like one of the things that are going on right now is, with the shootings at the schools, one side says, take away all the guns, and then the other side says, we'll give more people guns and to get rid of the bad guys, and then, so it just becomes, which one is it? Which one is the true option to keep us all safer? Well, it's just a division. So we have to think about these things, and, being nice to your neighbor. Oh, I know my neighbor, he's nice, but that guy across the street, I don't know him very well, and he doesn't smile at me, so he must be a horrible person. But we don't even know, but really he's just trying to do the same thing that you are, trying to live, trying to be happy, keep his family safe. And I think we should focus more on what we have in common rather than what separates us. And I think that we'd be more willing to help our community and our neighbors and our country if we thought about those things that we have in common rather than our differences and separating ourselves. I want to introduce my panel real quick. To my left is Mark Zapatowski, and on my far left is Martha Cooper. They're both going to help me talk about some of the things that you can do to help if you're really confused, and we're just going to touch on some of the things that maybe you're confused about and why aren't you voting. So either of you, if you want to address this, so is it more people just turning their back and they just don't care, or are they confused on how they can actually help? What do you think? Is it more of one or the other, or is it a combination of both?
I think people are all over the map. I've been pretty involved. I mean, I have more time than most people do, so that helps a lot. So I've been involved in some issues with housing in Grand Rapids, homes for all, homes for all. And I've, kind of kept an eye out what's going on within progressives and, you know, local party and the Democratic Party, that there's, you know, a struggle going on within that. And so I've been watching, and I watch the news a lot. So, but I think that it's emotionally hard, really, and so to pay attention these days when there's so much anxiety in just reading the news every day.
Absolutely. I've been hearing that a lot.
So people can't sustain that, is what I think.
Mm-hmm.
And I also think that, you know, it didn't get any easier. Like I said, I have time. So it's easy for me to forget that hardly anyone does. They're busy working and surviving, and it's nose to the grindstone. And, you know, it's like, here we are going, get involved, spend 10 hours of your week,
Right.
you know? And they're going, they don't have it.
Yeah, I'm already working 60 hours and have to take care of my family.
Plus, you know, emotion's not just finite. You can keep cranking it out. You've
No.
got kids that take it, and your relationships and things like that too. So I think that it's overwhelmed with how things are. I think that the division is pumped up like crazy right now.
Yes.
Okay, well, the way I see it, the president, the people around the president have brought in a different sort of atmosphere, and they're trying to accentuate the divisions. They're trying to make a kind of hysterical environment. The president says he likes chaos. He likes people who make chaos. They're making political division. They're trying to get a rise, so to speak, out of the other side. And when the other side gets hysterical, they present themselves in a way that then makes their supporters, the more right-wing supporters, get hysterical, because then they can say, whoa, there they go again.
And it creates a situation where anything he does that riles them is immediately believed. You know, there's no discernment. And what is that? You know, it doesn't seem like there's critical thinking. It's just an emotional wind. It's almost like, why didn't he quit campaigning? Because he needs it and they need it.
Well,
it keeps this, you know, like whatever is presented, it's the way he says it is. And so when you've got chaos going on, then it makes it so that, you know, there's really, it's just glomming onto something. It's not thought out.
His people around him talk about a kind of meta-truth. They don't care if Trump lies a lot or if the things he's saying are not factual, because a lot of his supporters are saying that he is touching deeper truth of the way his supporters feel, and it's about their prejudices. You know, it's part of it. And so the more he does this kind of thing and causes these reactions, the more his supporters support this sort of fascistic formula that he has. It's a lot like Hitler and the Nazis.
Very like
and they know that. And so
it worked.
So when people react to that, they have to understand that that's part of what's going on. I think that's actually why the apathy is so dangerous, is because, well, NPR, I tend to listen to NPR a lot in the mornings. It's just something I do, and so that's a major news source for me. I get some things off the internet too, but anyway, NPR said that in the McCarthy period, say in 1954, 12% of people in the U.S. had fascistic leanings and were narrow-minded, intolerant, whatever. And by the same measures that they were using at that time, taking the poll today, it's 36% of Americans. So those are basically the white Americans, and in a shrinking demographic group, and especially the white men are a lot like that. And so this is
when it comes
a very,
to media,
very dangerous thing.
Okay, this is dangerous. But when it comes to media, one of the things that occurred to me when you were telling those dates was what happened to our media in that amount of time. And what happened was Fox News and Rush Limbaugh.
And before that, the
And
deregulation.
The
it was a
splintered the media too.
total narrative shift, okay? When there was no more, you had to be at least honest. So a lot of people, even after the whole you had to be at least honest, went out of there.
Correct.
Everybody was thinking they can't say that if it's not true, because that's just how it had
And now
always been.
it does seem
And-
like always opinion news now. We don't hear much fact. It's they pick a topic and then they analyze it rather than.
Well, there is an awful lot of analyzing news. How else do you say
That's what we
something
do,
all
actually.
day long, right?
We
you know?
we do news analysis.
Yeah,
so
we're
we are
doing news
opinion
analysis
news.
now, right?
Of course.
Sure. But I also feel like, for me, it's like read a lot of different stuff from different sources and, compare, because a lot of it now is just one person puts out a story and all the rest of them put out the same
It's
story.
regurgitated over and
Yeah.
over.
So it does help to use different, and still it's like you have to read between the lines. Like knowing it took me forever, but it became very clear in this last year especially because of that wider and wider division of thought and ideas about things. It became really much easier to tell, I've always read or consumed news, what do they want me to think? So that I could then make up my mind. I would get as much information as I could, but it was always like, what do they want me to think? Because
Sure.
I realized that they're giving this stuff out there like it's truth, and it's far from it. Now we've got, though, a president that is making out like everything is a conspiracy theory, and I mean, he is pumping as much false news as he can.
Well, and
To
he's-
discredit it, so
And
that
obviously, it doesn't matter if he lies to the American people.
Well, and
Nothing will happen if you lie bald-faced to the
he
American
doesn't
people.
have much to lose, because unless he continues to control or get more power over the situation, he could end up impeached, imprisoned, shot as a traitor, whatever.
I
because
almost feel
he's
like-
some kind of Russian agent, even. I don't think that that's all that far-fetched. There are people who've written books about the fact that the Russians groomed him for years, starting in the early 80s. They said, look, he's a blowhard, he's an alcoholic, he's, what else is he? He's got this tremendous ego
Yes,
that you can
easily
pump.
manipulated.
So he's got all these instabilities, plus he's got this huge ego. Let's bring him to Russia and give him the red carpet and groom him over the years, and eventually maybe we could use him. And they're using him now. They started using him. And he has all these contacts, the people all around him have all these Russian contacts. What the hell? I mean, and the Republicans don't want to look at it, because suddenly, rather than being nationalists, I think what's happened is that they've really become fascists. They see him as a fascist leader, and they want fascism because the white people in a shrinking demographic are the core of the Republican Party, and they're going further and further to the right, I hate to say. And in that situation, they don't really believe in democracy. That's part of the poll that says that they don't.
Huge.
These 36% really don't believe in democracy anymore.
The
because
racism is off the shelf. The whole immigration thing is all about racism. I remember, I'm old enough now to remember that the census came out with, wow, the Hispanic population is really going to overtake whites. And all of a sudden, and then comes 9/11 and everything changed.
Sure.
It wasn't the natural, the INS anymore. Now it was the Department of Homeland Security. It was the Immigration and Naturalization Service.
Yep.
So anything service is gone. Really, these guys are eating us up. They don't care if we know it anymore. Okay?
They're very
I
blatant.
really feel like, and then I believe, sometimes I fear that there's no too far.
Yeah, because
There's no too far. He would let it be everybody on my side will believe what I say, and if I were to get impeached,
I could have them riot in the
might be
streets
violence.
Right.
Exactly.
Well,
And that's what I'm saying.
this
Seems
is-
like there's no too far.
So Giuliani is now his impeachment lawyer, essentially. So Giuliani's on his team, and Giuliani
I was
is
excited
going
for a
on
minute
Fox
there.
and saying, there will be blood in the streets if they go further with this investigation. So he's signaling to the Trumpies that, it might be time to go out in the streets if they start impeaching Trump.
Well, I want to signal for everybody to go out in the streets, to tell you the truth. I mean, I just keep going, I look at, I'm sorry, I try to handle it with a little sense of humor because it's unreal. It's almost like unreal. I
think
look
that
at
scares
Venezuela and all those people on the
think
freeways, and I'm like, I want to do that.
It scares people too much. They don't know what to do if there's an upheaval, and I think that's why they don't want to really get too involved as well. Because what happens when we bring down the government? What happens next?
Do you really
A lot of
think
people,
they think
That's the
like
danger.
I think there are some that are a little worried about that. I think some are excited about it and can't
Yeah.
wait, but then
I'm
there's
like-
those that are like, well, what if we push too far and then we actually do have to do something about it?
I think it's the Trumpies who are more likely. I mean, they're the ones who are the danger to the constitutional system because they're the ones. If really the scenario would be that Trump starts getting impeached because he's obviously, he's gone too far. He's taken too much money from the Russians. Everyone around him is like a Russian agent. Eventually, it could really come to bite and. There's some kind of push from Trump to maintain power despite the fact that he's constitutionally being ousted. Now, the strange thing is that people this is just one important point I have to get out, is that people like Trump and the current Republican leadership, again, because of the shrinking demographic and that in the near-term future, they won't be winning elections the way things are going. They need to downplay democracy. They need to get people to despise democracy. And so they have 36%, that 36% I mentioned from the NPR poll, have come to distrust democracy because Fox News tells them, oh, Congress can't work, oh, the left wing is always in the way. And the Republican parties in each of the states, and even the National Party, try to mess with the elections and gerrymander things to prevent democracy. So they're doing things to prevent black people and Hispanics from getting to the polls. They're doing things to make the polls not work, the machines not work, for the lines to be too long in the inner city areas.
They come up with
they're
this.
doing all these things because they're leaning in the non-democratic direction. And
Well, even
that's why
emergency managers.
we can't be apathetic because it has to. People can't just say, "Oh, I'm disgusted." Because this is exactly what happened in Weimar Germany when Hitler was about to come to power. A lot of people said, "Oh, he's just a clown. Just let it pass." It didn't. It didn't pass, and I think, unfortunately, you have a lot of the same dynamics working right now. And Trump is a Hitler admirer.
Listen,
He
admires all the bad guys, right? Every one of them, right down to Mike Tyson. Come on.
Yeah,
I mean, really? It's just
chew
ridiculous.
those ears off and spit them in their face,
Yeah.
That's the Trump motto.
And I kind of feel like there was something I saw that said something like 30% of the Germans were not for all this, and then there was 30% that just didn't want to deal with it, and there was 30% that agreed. So, and
it's similar. I would say it's similar
I
at this
feel
point.
like we're really in that. I feel like we're really in that position.
And when only
that
half
poll says we are in that position.
But when only half of our society is even voting, so if you want to divide the half that are voting, I mean, which 30% are we talking about? 30% of the people voting, or 30% of the people?
Well, this is 30%.
You know what I mean?
Would support a fascism. Over 30%, according to NPR's poll, anyway, if it's to be believed, and I believe it actually.
Well,
and they're overrepresented in the white people.
That voted for Trump.
They're overrepresented in the white people, unfortunately, and they're way overrepresented in the white guys. I'm sorry to say, but and so 30% are really apathetic. I believe that, but persuadable, unfortunately.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Way.
So would it matter if we got people to be able to vote? I mean, are we talking
wouldn't
30% of
matter.
the entire
It wouldn't
population or 30% of the voting population?
The more people who vote, the better it would be, because
There are
as each year
probably-
goes by, the demographics are shifting, and the white, unfortunately, a lot of the white people are leaning fascist.
If you think about
So
it,
if
and
more
you-
people vote, then
Right.
more minorities would be voting.
I
How
think so.
close are Michigan elections? And we've had gerrymandering for a long time.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay, so
Michigan's
what happened
notorious at this
in
point.
Pennsylvania was they got a jump, and so this election, this primary that just happened in Pennsylvania, that was not affected by gerrymandering because the state, I believe it was the state Supreme Court or Supreme Court, I'm not sure which, said, no more of that partisan gerrymandering. They are
US Supreme Court.
Right, and the U.S.
fact.
Supreme Court is now taking it up on partisan, not just civil rights. But we were also having a lot of pushback from the Chamber of Commerce. Even Enbridge's money is trying to stop that ballot petition for anti-gerrymandering to actually get on the ballot in November. They're going
Yeah.
to push it back as far as they can because
You know
they
it.
know that people are volunteering to run out and educate people on how to vote, because people don't show up because sometimes they don't know who
Trump
what
just
they're-
got a very far right-wing judge in there, unfortunately. So
Yeah,
things
that's
are
gonna
likely to
happen.
go pro-gerrymander, because that's pro-Republican continuation.
I have a really ridiculous story
I'm
about
sorry to
how
say.
we
No,
know,
I know.
when and
Well-
where to vote. When I lived downtown, which was either very affluent or very poor,
Yeah.
and so where I had to vote was almost 2 miles away.
No way.
Yeah, I was on
That's
down Lafayette
terrible. It's
Street,
supposed
and
to
I
be
lived right
within
down.
walking.
Yeah, it was down Lafayette Street, and then the other one, 2 different places for depending on what I was voting for. The other one was at Coy Elementary School, so that was a mile away, and the other one was a mile and a half away. And I thought, okay, well, there really aren't any schools downtown, and they usually do these at schools, so now I get why maybe they were over there. And then my friend moved in over by your house. It's the corner of Wealthy and Eastern. They were voting downtown at Westminster Church.
That's terrible.
Do you know how far away that is from
That's a
where
long
they
way.
live?
Wow.
Long
Yeah,
way.
that's a couple miles. Why couldn't I vote at Westminster Church that was 2 blocks away from my house?
People say that, like these,
I do,
they
it
have
is 2 blocks from
Republicans and
Westminster
Democrats.
Church isn't 2 blocks from your house.
They say
Well,
it's
4 or
not. It's
5.
not who votes. It's
It's
who
not
counts
far.
the votes. Okay. So
it
but
makes
I-
a difference
the
if you're
thing is
driving or
that
walking, though.
There's
True.
so many ways that 2016 was messed with. I'm so serious.
Mm-hmm.
All of them are valid because all of them were going on.
Mm-hmm.
We had cheating in primaries. We had, Russia. I mean, we had everything. We had the voter suppression. We had, what was it? The something Analytica came out of. It was sharing everybody. It was just
Oh,
grabbing
right, yeah,
everybody's Facebook and your
uh,
friends'
Cambridge.
information. Yeah,
Cambridge
we had
Analytica.
that. I mean,
Which
it
was
was like stories since then.
a Russian
So I
front,
feel like this.
kind of,
If,
another one.
If our elections are that close, and we've got gerrymandering on the ballot, it's going to take a while, but hopefully, I think that this gerrymandering petition would pass
I
like
hope so.
crazy.
Yeah, I think
then-
it's very nonpartisan, and I think everyone would.
But unfortunately, every time we
benefit.
seem to pass something through our petition drives and then having a referendum, during the whole process, then the Republicans come out and they pass a new law doing exactly the same thing. We voted like 3 times not to have the wolves hunted,
Oh,
and twice,
that's true.
2 or
Okay.
3 times they passed a law to do that. We voted to
I
legalize
can
medical
tell you
marijuana,
this.
and they would pass
I
another
can
law.
tell you this, is that one of the reasons they did the petition drive, and they've done a lot of homework. I don't think they went into it really stupid, because they came out. I went to something when they were still talking about it, before Voters Not Politicians formed and started really
Yes.
hunting signatures. And it was said that you don't want to try to do it by the legislature because they could just change their mind. You want to
Okay.
do it by a petition,
Okay.
because then neither one and can change their mind, and it's the Supreme Court that determines the intention of the voters,
Okay.
and that's how that speaks. There's really clear redistricting and how it's going to get done, and that's why voters need more information, because my thinking is the more information they have, the more likely they are to vote. When they are told what's going on, one of the things that blows my mind is like how many people don't vote in county and city, just in doing the
Because they
Homes for
don't even
All
know.
thing. Yeah, and I swear I still want to go find out what's going on at the county.
Well, television media is falling apart. I mean,
but it blows your
here we
it
are on
blows your
television, but
mind.
no one's watching.
You know
so.
how much actual taxpayer money is being handed out, and for what, and what's important, and who's favored. Okay, so we've got gentrification going on, and these are things that really hit people's lives in a fast way.
For sure.
Okay, they're just going to raise all the fees in town, and if you ask me, that's kind of like, a different way of taxing people.
Oh, absolutely.
And that means that I will pay more than somebody with
Oh,
big.
it's
so
There's a super good chance that I won't be here in a year because I'll be pushed out of town. I mean, I know
I'm
that
telling
looks
you
like
what,
it's right on the horizon.
Not this time. We are taking on at least the application fees because currently everything is very for the landlords.
Oh, yes.
You pay big money per person in your household to be screened. They don't show you the screening. They don't tell you what service. They don't tell you why you didn't get it.
Nope.
And they keep the money.
Yep.
There was one man, we've been doing some canvassing because we're trying to educate and involve neighbors. At one point in their Housing Now proposals, they twisted it around to basically give the developers in certain corridors, which just happened to be where the old school redlining went,
Oh, sure.
full permission to do whatever they wanted without fees to the city and any input from
and
neighbors.
they put it in the name of progress that when they do this, it'll bring more business to the area and more people will want to live there, and then it'll bring more money into the area.
if
And that's what they
gonna
do
look
it in
like
the name
Wealthy
of.
Street.
Yeah.
So I get up at the city commission because, folks, here's some great ideas for you. You can go to your city commission. You've got 3 minutes to speak whatever's on your heart and mind about any issue that's involved with the city and the voter. You have 2 representatives there, a mayor and a commissioner. One of the things that we can do, even simple things, is get a piece of Post-it note and stick your representative and your state representative's number. Stick it on a mirror or the side of the fridge. And when you watch what's been going on, even if you're not on Facebook and don't have a computer, because when I was on Facebook, I saw stuff out there that's being shared like crazy to call up the guy that's in charge of all of those missing immigrant children.
Oh, yes.
Okay, and so people are just doing that, and so it actually does matter
Well, I think
because they almost know that anybody that bothers to call is going to be voting and is going to get other people to vote.
correct. If you're that involved about making a call to
Even
any of,
that.
then they know that you're probably going to vote.
You're going to be active about it.
And
too.
I think we need to, not just our representative, we could start, call our mayor, talk to her about it, what's going on with things in this country,
Yeah.
housing in Grand Rapids.
And,
then you can go up
right.
to, a representative and our senator and our governor,
You know
talk
how
to,
most of us
yell
are
at all of them.
We've read the media that we're going to read, and it's now 11 p.m. Their answering machine does not care. Call at 11, call at 2 a.m. You'll be saying, this is so-and-so, and this is my number. Here's where I live, and this is what I think. You don't have to be perfect or write a script. Just come right off the top and tell them what's up. And then, it's kind of like people, I think, feel like they're being done to, rather than this idea of we have to get control of this. We have to be in charge.
get what you want out of it
If you
rather than
don't
let.
show up and vote, you've got no, it's not you can't complain because people will, but you've got no being in charge. In order for us to tip it as close as things are, even with gerrymandering, we just have to have turnout.
I agree.
They're terrified in Michigan that the legalization of marijuana will be on that November ballot. And it's because of who it's likely to draw to vote, which is
sure.
likely more people, for one, and that right there could do them in.
Yep.
Just more people.
A total of something like, 20,000 votes in Michigan
Yeah.
tipped the state. and without
For
for Trump.
it was less.
Less. Well,
It was
Yeah, it
actually
wasn't-
11. I think it was 11,000
okay.
in the whole state. Blah. But
So there you go.
I don't know that much. I still wonder if gerrymandering had anything to do with it. But
Well, I think the thing that really disturbed me was the Green Party candidate, whose name I forget, the woman doctor. Anyway,
Stein.
she asked for a recount, and I think anyone should be able to ask for a recount, and she was paying for it. Then the Republicans got together and stopped it simply because that could have been it.
Yeah,
they,
it could have
they
been
said, "Oh,
because
she
it
has
was
no
too
chance
close."
to win." That wasn't the point. She didn't want Trump to be president because she's a citizen. She had a right to not have Trump be president if he wasn't really elected. And I
They
think it's a
tried to
very
make
good
her-
chance
they
that he
were-
was not elected. And Michigan is, the place where that happened. It could have happened in other places
no,
too.
it did. It did. It did. And the thing that I knew was that the amount that she lost by, it wasn't because of Stein. Okay, there were other reasons. That's the
But
thing. Everybody
I
has.
think-
This is the one thing. Well, no.
No, yeah, it's always a lot.
She
Yeah.
or anyone should have had the right to ask for that
Anyone.
recount.
I
They were going to
should have.
pay for it. But they said she had no way of winning, but that wasn't the point.
No, she wanted a
is
fair
citizen.
election. Thank you.
Right, didn't want
Well, after-
Trump to win unfairly if that's what he did. And she had reason to believe that we all did. The machines, what was going on with the machines? Why were the lines really
Well, by
long
the
in certain
time-
places and not in other
By the
places?
time Hillary got done cheating in the
Yes.
Democratic primary, no one believed anything anymore. That it was like, it was a free
That
for all.
was-
It was a free for
was a
all
disgrace.
all
So,
across
yeah.
the country.
Hillary, maybe she should have been shot for what happened in New York City. There were 140,000 people in Queens whose votes were
It
discounted.
was more than that. That was just Queens. It was like
One borough,
300,000.
Yeah.
300,000 or in the whole state.
So they voted, and they were told, "Oh, you're a Republican." They were Democrats. So it was
purged
an
completely, yeah.
extreme corruption. And
All
so
the way.
yes, it wasn't just the Trump and the Republicans. It was a disgraceful election, and I do blame Hillary for Trump.
Let's
in
take
a
a
lot of
step
ways.
back almost 20 years and talk about the 2000 election. How that was all messed up. What happened between 2000 and 2018 where we were mad about the voting system then? We didn't
2000 and what? What is it?
2000 when we had hanging chads and Al
Well,
Gore
then
won.
9/11.
Yeah.
It was 9/11.
So
Was it
everyone
before or
forgot.
after?
Let me tell you something
the
else.
2000 election, right before 9/11 happened.
Oh, okay.
So,
Yeah.
so that's 9/11 distracted us. We were all pissed off about the election because everyone would say George W. stole the election. He bought it
popular
from
vote.
Jeb
It
bought
was
it in
stolen.
Florida.
There were 30,000 black people who were not, whose votes were thrown out in Florida because
Those are just the ones we know about.
Yes, Jeb Bush's brother, who was the governor of, Jeb Bush, the governor of Florida, on behalf of his brother who was running for president, had the whole state of Florida send its voters' records to Texas, where a Texas company purposely
Also
ran
Republican.
all of the data on the voters and found out that there were black voters who had certain names like Washington and Jefferson and all sorts of common names.
That same thing went on.
But I'm just saying, in Florida, that wiped out 30,000 votes. And so they purposely threw out all those votes that had the same name, and they said, oops, we goofed. Who would have thought? Well, they knew exactly what they were doing. And that alone threw the election.
But they're still doing it today. So
Only
why?
now we're
why-
just doing it 20 ways instead of the one.
Yeah. So what happened? Why did we forget? It's this show that they keep putting on for us. 9/11 happened, and now we're totally distracted about the voting system, and then all of a sudden it's happening again. It's not a big surprise because it was never resolved.
Well, every time Trump goes out and he goes, "Oh, little rocket man," or "Oh, liars, rapists, thieves," some of them good people, I'm sure. He's making a big explosion over his head, and people go and they get mad over that, and
Yes.
they start forgetting larger issues.
Yes.
Those are his appealing to racism and all this stuff.
Well, it's like he
it
can't
works
stop
for
hating
him.
Hillary, and she's long gone.
Yes.
You know, I'm like, oh my gosh, lock her up. Hey, get a new line.
Yeah.
You know.
Look at what happened the day before 9/11. It's on videotape. I've shown it on this show before. Donald Rumsfeld, Secretary of Defense, on 9/10 of that year, the day before 9/11, had a news conference, and he said, "Oops, $3 trillion is missing from the Pentagon budget over the past 6 years, whatever."
Yeah, don't even know.
And people said, "What? You know, this is only a $14 trillion economy. How can $3 trillion vanish?" And he said, "Oh, it's a big budget." And then he said, "Well, I'll have more for you later." And that was the end. He didn't
Never
take
heard
any
another
questions.
word.
9/11, boom. And then no one ever dealt with it again. Guess what? There's another $4 trillion missing just recently that was announced. But guess what? Trump just has to go,
And say something
liars and
racist.
rapists are, attacking the border. I'm going to call out the National Guard on the border. And people don't. They follow him and his weird
Or
tweets
just say
and
something.
stuff.
Yeah, I was just gonna say something stupid on Twitter, and then everybody's up in uproar. It's like, is Trump really the biggest problem that we have right now? No. Forget about him. Pretend he doesn't exist.
What are
and
they
take-
doing with
some
all
of
that
the
money? I
people-
want to know. I
Yeah.
think it's not
Some of the people he's
something
hired
good.
are.
It's not
Yeah,
something
exactly.
good.
Okay.
Let's take care of some of those people, those
Like,
problems.
he hires only the best villains. You know?
Exactly.
So I think one
And
of
he
the
admires Putin, that guy.
What really
what a guy.
bothers me is that sometimes even I'm a news junkie, I'm hardcore. I'll go look and I'll see a headline and I'll be, I don't think I can read that right now. I'll come back to that.
Yeah, I
later.
do. I bookmark a lot of stuff to read later.
They-
Because
they
I just
depend on
can't.
that.
I'm like, my God,
The people who are doing bad things to us depend on our fatigue. So
that's
you
exactly
just have to
the
realize
It's hard to
way
keep
it
up.
feels.
It really is.
It's in
You
our
called and
vital
asked me to do the
interest
show and I'm-
to struggle with this. It's in our vital interest because if we don't,
I know.
there
I
are
think
people
that's
who are
exactly
going
right.
to turn off our lives, I'm afraid.
I mean,
because our lives are not worthwhile to the powers that be anymore. They don't need all these people.
No, they don't.
Maybe
They
they
don't want
need
any
their
housing or-
supporters who go out in the streets to protect Trump or something. But basically, they transferred the whole economy to other places, and they don't need the elite powers, the money powers, have established themselves throughout the world, and really they don't need the American people anymore. So we have to worry about
getting to the
this.
point.
We have
No,
to worry
really,
about
it's
this.
true. I start thinking about, we still have the 13th Amendment. We're going to throw a whole lot of immigrants out of this country. And we won't have enough
That's a
labor.
great distraction.
No,
I mean, that
seriously.
becomes a conflict
seriously,
that
when I
works
think
in Trump's
about when you
interest.
start thinking about fascism and the march of
Yeah,
it,
yeah.
so then I start really, and I am not like
It's a
conspiracy
real issue, but
theory
it
prone,
itself becomes
but
a
I've
distraction.
also sat there and watched where a father or mother goes to jail and they work and they get nothing and no money goes to their children
Right.
from the person that's making all the profit. So it shows you that there's no care at all for the people. They're just something for the machine to eat up.
Mm-hmm.
So we're just redesigning a different people to eat. It's gonna
Absolutely.
be, listen, whiteies, it's gonna be us.
It's already
us.
It's already
right?
all of us. you
Really?
know.
I have a great example of how it's to simplify this in economic standards. Okay, so let's say we get rid of all the immigrants and all the people that are harvesting our plants and taking care of our farms and stuff that we think that we're too good for. What if they all disappeared? We won't be able to survive. We won't have any
No.
food to eat. But
That's-
but they're not getting paid. They're not getting paid the value of what they're doing to feed everybody else. If we got rid of all the lawyers today, would we notice? Would your life change? But
Certainly not immediately.
no. But if we got ran out of people making food for us, we would.
Yeah.
We get rid of all the
Well,
people working
I
at
just went to
McDonald's
a
or
reward
whatever.
system.
One of the
is
things that I
stunted.
do, because I'm trying to be an ally, is I go once in a while to a COSECHA meeting, okay, with this immigration, and I was there last night. In their training, they're not waiting for the Democrats. they were talking, look what happened, 2001, all of a sudden it's the Department of Homeland Security
Yeah.
and everything, and how they're talking about it. What happened? We fought and we marched right before Obama and we all voted for him and nothing. And we're going to have everything we need, and they're basically like looking at the triangle. Here's their triangle of power. You got the 1% and the rich, and right, and then you've got this layer, and down here are the people, and they're like, they're standing on our heads. What we have to do is pull ourselves out. Because if we go on strike,
Exactly.
okay,
That's
if
what I was
we
getting
pull
at.
our kids out of the school system, because they had to call a snow day, you know,
Yep.
because they pulled the kids
they didn't
out.
they didn't have
That's
enough
right.
kids to teach.
The amount of money, everybody's got this, we also have to correct narrative. The amount of money that they put in to the Social Security that they'll never get out is astounding.
It is.
So, yeah, but that's what I'm saying, is that there are people, the people that don't have a roof are so busy surviving, okay? It's the people that are struggling and the people that feel it first, okay?
Oh, absolutely.
There are folks that are comfortable and they can choose whether they want to be involved or not. It's not at their doorstep if
Correct.
their neighbor or even their niece is getting a box of food every month instead of a way to eat healthy. Okay? Until it's you, and you have to solve that problem, which is what's going on with Gosecha. It's them, and they have no choice but to do something. We're
In order
sitting
to
here,
survive.
even when we're struggling, you know, but we've got people that are working hard, they've got student loans to pay, okay, or they're going to have debt, they're starting families, and they can't live in this city even though they work right here,
Yep.
okay? It's not a gas station job that person isn't making enough to pay rent.
It's several. You know, a lot of
So
them are.
we're getting to where we've got the served and the servers,
Uh-huh.
and so at what point do people get up? When they're uncomfortable?
Mostly,
And
yeah.
maybe that's why they don't want to know what the news is saying, because I'll be uncomfortable
Yep.
and I may have to do something.
Yep. That's what I see
Yeah,
exactly.
of course. I mean, it's always going to be part of it.
And some people are just flat out overwhelmed or sick, or, you know, but that's why I
Or not
say,
educated enough.
that's why I say, even
to understand
even
what's
if
going
you're,
on.
if you're willing to look, it's almost like I want to remind people this is our country, and we have to be responsible at some point. We can say it's messed up and we'd be right, and then,
Yeah. You know, it's like, so you have a messy house. You go clean it up.
and then, because if we're going to really stick our heads in the sand, someday they're coming for you. All
Right. Right. The big.
When you get-
the big
like,
lawnmower
when you get-
will come and chop off that
over
head
this,
sticking up
we've
out of the
let
sand.
this racism go on, and
Yeah,
it
yeah.
wasn't ours until, you know, now we see it, we're aware of it. It's not, you know, hard to I mean, and if we don't get up, it's kind of like,
Well, this racism, this new Trump racism
Jesus, it's
especially,
not
is
new,
the
but
sharp.
this
Well, I'm
is-
saying that there's a new
It's a fire
sharp
in the
edge
street.
to it.
Yeah,
that is
it's a
Trump
fire
and
in
his
the street.
supporters, and now they're, you know, staring at minority people on the streets and saying stuff out of cars. That's the sharp.
calling people.
That's the sharp emerging edge of a real fascism. That's a danger to everyone.
I know
I
that
mean,
is.
it's certainly a danger
I know
to me. You know. Because I like to speak my mind, and you know that does not work. And once you have a full-blown fascism, you're not going to have that opportunity
dang, I'm
anymore, and
so
it
much
becomes
trouble.
dangerous.
No, really, I know it. It does become dangerous.
So,
but
so that's a reason. Not to say, oh, I'm just so tired now of the whole thing, and you know, for my own peace of mind, I've just got to, you know, go to the
keep
beach
hearing that over and
you
over.
know, and
You know,
just mellow out. You know, and
sometimes
no, it's not the
people-
time to mellow out.
think, well, okay,
Not for
I'll
our
just
own
hang
sake.
back for a while, and then when it gets closer, I'll do something. Do you
It's
know?
getting close. Yeah,
And
it's, it's getting close.
we do have, but I also want to say that there are some simple things that we can do. And I have one that I practice and that's called Double Martha's Vote.
Okay.
And I can't tell that other person how to vote, but I make a concerted effort to figure out who can I get to go with me to vote, or who can I take to vote.
Yeah, if they
So
don't have
that
a ride. you
I
give
know
them-
they did. That's my little. I took my cousin one year, and there was a woman, and she was going to have a hard time standing in
I
line,
do
but
that.
she actually wanted to go vote, so we took her down, and I think, just like I said, you know, and when you're involved in a group, think about it. I remember being involved in the Bernie group, and we were still campaigning for him, and I said, hey, everybody, let's double our size. Somebody bring somebody next time.
Well,
You know.
I just wish we had other parties. I wish we had a real socialist alternative at this point. I mean, the closest we've had to it, I guess, was Bernie, and he was really illegally betrayed by the Democrats. So
Certainly,
I hope
but
that something like that's not
they
going
made
to
an
happen
agreement,
again.
and there was no way that they kept their agreement, even with the
No,
people
it was
that voted in their
blatantly
party.
corrupt and illegal. what
But
happened.
you know, Bernie wasn't the first guy like him that showed up in the Democratic Party. Okay, and we've had,
Over the years.
we've had a Republican, Eisenhower, that certainly socked it to the rich. Okay.
Well,
so I just look, and I'm not saying I don't advocate for more parties, but how to get there from here when your hair's on fire? Because right now our hair's on fire.
I would say
Yeah.
Eisenhower was the least Republican since himself. Since then,
but you know,
he,
FDR has there is like huge daylight between FDR and say Obama.
yeah,
all right?
but even though Obama
Or-
would like to think of himself as some kind of FDR,
Well,
he
what
didn't
people
end up being one.
think and
No.
what they do, right? And really, that's where the distaste is from now. Is a lot of people, not just the immigrants, are going, "What did he do for us?"
Well, here's something disturbing.
We're all still in debt. We're all still, you know, there's been a recession every 12 years. That's
Sure.
part of the plan.
Well, and
Yeah.
this, you,
Regardless of
you
who's in
remind
power.
me
Seems
that
like.
there's something going on right now, and this talk about Obama and FDR, and it reminds me of the Great Recession, which is, you know, takes its name sort of from the Great Depression. It was similar.
It was like they kept calling it recession.
But the thing is, I mean, it was a depression. I mean, it was severe enough.
People lost
but we
homes
are
like that.
actually, we had reforms, the Dodd-Frank reforms were put in place. Those are being taken apart absolutely.
Right now.
By
right now.
Democrats too. Thank you very
Yeah.
much.
Yes, it's all being taken apart, and it's because the elites want to have a feeding frenzy again, and they don't mind if they blow the whole thing up again because
Because
the
they
people,
already know who gets their rewards.
the people who suffer will be the little people, and they will get bailed out. So
Hate to tell you, but the Pope's already warning us.
What did the Pope say, and
The
what-
Pope.
tell us what's
I
going on
saw
here.
a story, and I was like, "Wow, man! I knew that I kind of liked that Pope for a Pope." But yeah, he was saying that it was immoral the way that the dividends and everything were doing the same thing that we did before in 2008.
you
Absolutely.
mean
And he
credit
was
default swaps
yeah,
and bizarre
yes,
derivatives
he
and
said it is
strange-
unethical and it is going to cause great suffering. He said when that happened before, all of these derivatives, the so-called value, was more than the actual money on the planet.
Yeah,
in
it was far more
every-
than the actual. But
It-
the people who caused the problem did not suffer from the problem.
No.
They
But the lower
gained.
classes were devastated, and many people who had worked hard to, you know, put away savings all their lives lost it because they were put in these semi-privatized, you know, 401ks and stuff like that.
Well, right
and that's
now,
still
right
the
now,
case.
part of our fascism is coming out where they're attacking unions, okay, and they want to keep wages low. That's their favorite. And then let's also look and say, well, it's like, I'm sorry, I'm losing
okay.
my train of thought.
The Pope, the fascism,
yeah,
the
but
derivatives.
what's
the-
going on is like every time that crashes, it's the people that are being told save your money, invest, all these kind of stuff, and
Yeah.
they have nothing.
Yeah.
and the money goes straight to the top.
Absolutely.
Well,
So-
they think the Federal Reserve is there to be some kind of regulating force. No, it's the Federal Reserve is like the head of the feeding frenzy people who like all this kind of thing, and they harvest in, all those savings, and these are people who do not suffer when the crash comes either.
Well, what they want to do is they want to blame people, and it's sort of like, well, we're going to make you work for your Medicaid. That's what I'm saying about the narrative
And they're going to
of being
remove
able,
your Medicaid.
your Social Security. I mean, anything. It's like they're trying to. When we say divide, it's very obvious what's going on with race. But it is so huge what's going on with poverty, plain old poverty. You will not be out of debt in this
Wealth
country
transfer.
in 30. By the time you're 30, if you're going to try to have any kind of a life, you're already in debt.
yeah.
Okay, that's a plan. So
So then they make you a slave and
Student
you have to
loans.
work.
Student
that
loans.
woman was
Huge.
homeless and living in a motel room, and she was gone at work when her boyfriend beat her baby. And if you don't think that that's a death from poverty,
It absolutely is.
and that's going on right here in Grand Rapids.
There's no place for
Yes,
anybody to live.
because of the
and they can't-
gentrification
and
that's
she
out of
can't
control.
she can't get a living wage. Where the hell is the daycare?
No, yep, can't afford daycare.
Okay, I said to the city commission, babies
She used
cry.
to have a house,
It's what
right?
they do. Well,
She had a house,
I
and-
hope so, but I don't know how old the baby was. People are living there for a year.
Well-
There was an old couple, one with a walker. Two of them had Social Security.
This
one of
was
them,
the result of gentrification.
This is people have no place to rent.
Right.
Where they
Well, and
were
housing
renting,
prices have
they
gone
are
up as
literally raising people's rent while they're still in there
Yes.
and doing it again. And then if you've got a little old lady living in a 550 apartment, just like someone else I know, had to move because they gave her a 30-day notice because they could raise it.
Yep.
Some of them are just doing it now in Kentwood because of the problems with the people that got pushed out to Kentwood. The ones that aren't living in what they call efficiencies with a mini fridge and a microwave.
Right.
Otherwise, it's a motel room. That's the same type of thing that little kid was in, and you've got a screaming baby. Where do you, right? Or maybe you have 3 children, and
A lot
you're
of tension, pressure, no peace. I mean, people need a certain amount of space. And like you said,
absolutely.
So what's going on is literally they're raising the rent right on people right where they live, right where
Correct.
they are at. And they can do it even though there's no reason to raise the rent except for just plain
They
greed.
can.
of
well, and
more-
then 2
because
months
there's
later they
nowhere
raise the
else
rent
to
again,
go.
and if that
There's
doesn't work, they
nowhere
raise a
else
3rd
to
time
go.
within 6 months, and then if that doesn't work, you're just told to leave
Well,
because we
yes.
have to do renovations.
I think part of it, part of the housing problem as well is that Grand Rapids has been marketing itself and trying to get people to move here for our medical mile area
And our
other
beer.
things like that, and
Our
our beer
craft
and
beer,
all these
ooh.
things they keep advertising. So people are like, oh, well, there must be jobs there if they're advertising that they're opening up these new breweries. So people are moving in, and that's how we're having a shortage right now. Is that people are moving in, and they try to grab the first place available, and then that's how it people
Some
get pushed
Americans are okay with debt. Okay? And we've got medical schools here. These people aren't going to school to come out, with a 2-year degree. They're moving here.
out. Correct.
And they're moving here with big money, and they're going to go in debt because they're going to make big
They
money.
think
They
with the
think they will.
intention of
I'm
it.
just saying,
Yeah.
okay? So when the schools moved here, they didn't put in new housing.
Nope.
They are marketing. I know, and it's not a pretty thing to say, but the fact is, they collect income tax in the city. So what do they want? They want higher incomes in the
Correct.
city.
Correct.
And that's looking like where we're at right now. It doesn't look as bad yet as LA and Seattle, but it will, because when you look at what happened in
could.
Seattle and you rewind it, it comes down to land use and zoning. And that's what they're doing right now in Grand Rapids.
It's very strange.
The next couple of commission meetings are going to be on
Well,
are going to be on the Affordable Housing Fund, and who's going to be in charge of it? We are agitating for citizens to be in charge.
The three of us here might lose our housing in the next
Oh,
year
oh,
because the
absolutely.
pressure is so
Easily.
intense, and I'm hearing that this really could happen, and I
Sorry.
don't know what I would do, but
I know.
I think that I might not even be in this state. I might have to move to another state and
A place where it's warm and you can live in a tent. I mean, no, I'm serious. That's what I'm looking at.
Well, come on.
What else am I going to do?
I'm not
Isn't
putting it
this
beyond
fun?
the
No,
possibility.
I know, but right now we're looking at little houses. Tiny houses are a big fad. Okay, seriously.
Oh, right, micro
That's
houses.
why.
But
like 10 feet by 10-foot squares with everything you need.
right.
And a loft.
Yeah,
That is,
so-
5 foot,
But it is,
Tall.
right now it's the most vulnerable among us. I mean, I sit and I go, I don't know what's going to happen. I would love to get a dog, but that's not happening because.
No.
Yeah.
You don't know where you're
I
gonna be.
just look at it like
And what do
for
I do?
today.
Euthanize my
I think
cats? I'm
that may
wondering.
be a
Yeah.
lot
I
of
might
what's
have
going
to.
on.
If you don't know where you're
I
going to
might
live.
have to ask the vet to give me a discount on destroying my animals, rather than have them,
But
running
yeah,
around
and
starving
so-
and living
you
in
So
know,
then
the
you're
I-
living your entire life, not your entire
We
life.
can't do it. The whole fear thing would just drive you off the.
Well,
And that's
we
what
can
they're-
talk
that's what
about
they intend on.
what we should do, but I'm just saying that things are very serious. There's, the march toward fascism,
Yeah.
and it's not. I mean, the fascism itself is not a distraction, but there are a lot of distractions
That's huge.
from it. Like even Trump's potential impeachment. I mean, that's very important, but even that in itself, it could be considered a kind of distraction because people's real lives are threatened by the very fact that this economy does not need most of its people. And
This is
so
true.
people need to own that fact and begin to imagine a different kind of society, because as it is, the power structure is actively imagining a society without most of us. And it's
frankly,
dangerous
I-
because
I'm
in
gonna
history,
say
when that
a
happens,
lot of people
they
think that's
kill
crazy.
those people or find a way for them to die. And that's happened over and over again.
I know.
and
I
it could
mean,
happen
this
again.
this does not. It's true. I have literally thought, well, what will we do when they don't need, when they don't need people? It's like there's. One of the things I wanted to bring up too was it's about a moral
All right.
issue.
We got 1 minute left, so I'm going to wrap it up.
Okay.
Thank you both very much for speaking. But I want to thank our viewers for watching and listening to this, and I hope you got some good ideas. And maybe wake up a little bit and think about how you can help change your way of thinking, I guess, to help change. If you don't like what's going on around you, you can change it. When you were saying what you did the most, I wanted to say what I do the most. And what I do is I pay attention where I spend my dollars.
Yes.
I don't want to shop at
Support
Walmart
Nestle,
or
right.
any name brand big stores. I do everything as locally as I can possibly afford as much as possible, and try to help out my neighbors when they need it. Share as much as I can.
yeah.
5 people don't have to have one shovel. They're not going to use it at the same time. I mean,
Right.
we can just share one.
That's
That's
right.
just an example, but like a rototiller. Everyone use it one day,
Right.
and then your buddy can use it the next
That's right.
day. It does help the economy a little
Give
bit when you're buying more
rides,
than
right,
one, but
yeah.
just help as many people as you
I
can.
think that's really true.
That's what I try to do, and I hope if that's something little you can do to help a society thrive, and that's why.
Encourage each other too, big time.
And let people know that you do care about them and that they do matter, and then they'll see themselves as value, and then they might be more willing to get out and vote or do something for the community and some such.
Oh no.
Last time it was
It
26.
was over there, I'm sorry. It was set up. Oh,
26
shoot.
cents. 26
Oh, was
seconds
it?
off
Yeah,
last time I directed. So I
okay.
think we're good now. But
Yeah, I had it set up. I'm sorry. I didn't get it to you. Yeah. All right.
Cool.
Thank you, Dick.
All right.
I forgot to show you how to change the
Beans.
graphics.
Come on, open. Don't tear
to
my
put
shirt.
your name in the Rollins.
I don't care.
So,
I could not care less.
are you going home or are you going to go to Kale's Corner?
We're going home.
Okay.
Lily can't go to the bar yet.
Oh, that's good.
We're gonna rock with some tacos is what we're gonna do.
You're gonna rock with tacos?
We're gonna go to El Globo and do some tacos.
Yeah, I'm gonna go.
Okay.
I am. These are cool chairs. I like them.
Really? I thought we should have rocked with those comfy green ones.
Oh, those are cool.
They look comfy.
I thought 4 of them would